Hey everyone, this is Rob over here at BuneBape, and I hope you're having an amazing day. Today I'll be bringing you all another Outriders video, and this time it's going to be on gear progression. So I'm going to be going over everything you need to know on how to progress your gear from the early stages all the way into very late game. So before we jump into the video, if you enjoy the video or it helps you at all, make sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more Outriders content, make sure to subscribe. And of course, if you have any questions or if you think I wasn't very clear on anything, let me know down in the comments below. I check and respond to literally all of them. So with this video in mind, I'm going to be going over the fastest and smoothest way that I think you can transition from world tier all the way up to world tier 15 and then all the way up to challenge tier 15, giving you the best gear in the game, which is level 50. So a couple things we have to go over. First is, yes, you heard that level 50. I know that maybe you heard your character level is level 30 and that's the max, which it is. But the thing is, your gear level can go all the way up to level 50 after your character reaches level 30. I know it's a little confusing at first, but it'll make sense, especially once you get into challenge tiers. So now that you know that, I'm going to be going over my advice from starting really early on and going all the way into the late game. And so this video is actually going to be in that order of progression. So if you're already in some expeditions like challenge tier 10, 11, 12, you might want to skip a little bit later past this part because I'm going to be talking about world tiers. Also, this video is going to be focused on solo play as that's mainly what I'm familiar with. They just actually today put out the patch on them improving the multiplayer stability, including the gear getting wiped. So I actually might start playing with people now. Thank God they finally fixed that. With that being said though, if you are playing with friends and they boost you a bunch of levels, then obviously your path is going to be a little bit different than this one that I'm going to set up here. So you're just going to want to keep that in mind if you are playing with higher level friends. And so with all of that rambling out of the way, let's get into the very first part I wanted to talk about, and that's progressing through world tiers. So each world tier that you progress through, it's going to increase the level of gear that is allowed to be dropped as well as allowed to be purchased. And that's a really key point, that your purchasable equipment level also goes up whenever your world tier or challenge tier goes up. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your world tier all the way up to 15. In my opinion, that is going to be the fastest and smoothest way to get your gear all the way up to level 40 extremely reliably. Chances are, if you've been on a linear path all the way from the beginning of the game, you're going to finish the campaign anywhere between world tier 8 and 12. And this is going to be a pretty good starting point. You're going to want to get all the way up to 15, like I said, and there's a myriad of ways that you can do this. I found that doing the wanted quest or any quest that is easily repeatable is going to be really fast and enjoyable. I have an entire video about the world tier system, so if any of it is still confusing or if you're looking for other ways to level it up, then maybe check out that video. Alright, so now that you are either working your way towards world tier 15 or you're already there, I'm also going to be assuming your character level is 30. So you have the full set of skill points available. You can now equip level 42 gear because of your world tier. And so we're going to move on to the next step that I think you should take. And that is going to be to find a reliable build, whether that's something you came up with yourself that you think is a really good option, or you can just look through my videos if you're a technomancer or other people's videos. I'm sure there's a ton of different and reliable builds out there for all different classes, so I would find something that you feel comfortable with. Maybe it's really similar to the build that you already have going for yourself, and this is going to make it so that you have a goal in mind when looking for gear, which is really important because you want to start gearing for the end game for your level 50 gear right now. And this is something that I regret that I didn't do or know or have in mind, because I think at the time when I was leveling, there wasn't really any solidified actual builds in the game or really best practices, but there definitely are now. For instance, if you're going for a totally skill reliable build, then you want to go for anomaly gear that has maybe cooldown reduction and status. This is all stuff that you're going to be able to find now while getting gear, and you can carry this all the way into the end game being level 50, CT 15. Also, it gets a lot easier spotting really good gear as you level up or as you have a solidified build in mind, because you know what you're going to be needing to look for. You can make really amazing endgame pieces of gear, even out of green gear that you happen to find or that happens to be on a vendor. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a full video on how to craft some of the best gear or just straight up the best gear in the game, and it's a very easy process, a very short video, so I'd go check that out if you're interested at all. So this all brings me back to the next step in the process, and that's going to be getting a build, but also getting the gear for the build. So you can start getting gear and preparing yourself for the build that you have in mind right now, and that's exactly what I would recommend. So make sure that you're farming gear that has not just the attributes that you're looking for, but also some of the more key mods that you're going to want to be getting. I also have a video on the best mods for weapons, so if there's something there that you're not understanding, make sure to look for death chains and check that video out if you want a better description. And as far as the armor mods you're going to want to be looking for, of course that's going to depend on your builds, but some really good generic ones are stuff like damage absorber and also maybe something like untamed power if you're using a skill build. Alright, so now for the next step in the process. At this point, I'm assuming that you have farmed your World Tier 15 missions or bosses for a little bit of time. You have maybe 3-4 pieces of gear that is going to be ideal for your build, and all your skills are set up and applicable for a pretty decent build going into expeditions, which is the next step. So expeditions are going to be the end game in this game. This is going to provide you the rest of the progression in the game, meaning that this will take you all the way up to your maximum item level of 50, and this is going to be through the challenge tier system. So I'm going to put a little picture on the screen right now. This is something I've showed a couple times. It's going to show the cross section of world tier and challenge tier and where the gear level meets. So now you can see essentially you're going to want to get up to challenge tier 9, which is going to be near the equivalent of world tier 15. This should be very doable for you because you should easily be farming world tier 15 at this point with all of your gear not perfected, but working its way towards it. Also, this is going to take you a number of expeditions to get up to challenge tier 9. It's going to take you a few of them and they're going to have worse gear. But with that being said, don't immediately trash the gear. Make sure you're going through all of these lower level pieces of gear so that you can check and see if they are diamonds in the rough. So now that you have gone all the way up to challenge tier 9, that is going to be the equivalent, like I said, of just a little bit higher than world tier 15, which is where you want to be. So now that you're here, you're going to be finding gear pieces that are actually higher level than yours. One really unfortunate thing about challenge tiers is while maybe you go up to 9, 10, or 11 pretty successfully, eventually your growth is going to get stunted drastically and you're going to get stuck, and that's because every time you go up a challenge tier, you essentially nerf your gear and your build. And it's because the way the system works, every time you go up a challenge tier, let's say you're challenge tier 10 and you go up to 11, and we're assuming that all of your gear is at challenge tier 10. So that means that your gear is level 44, but if you successfully do a challenge tier 11, then your gear is suddenly supposed to be level 46. This jump isn't that big on paper, but all of the numbers on the gear actually scale exponentially. So the difference between having a full set of level 44 gear and a full set of level 46 gear is going to be a world of a difference, which is why you're going to have to do the next part of the process. So continuing along with the process, as well as continuing along with our example, let's say you are stuck for some reason at the challenge tier 11. So that means that your gear should be level 46. Of course, in the first few levels, you're likely going to be taking down the levels faster than you can upgrade all of your gear, and that's perfectly fine and normal. It is very normal to get stuck, especially around challenge tier 10 through 12. I find that this is the hardest leap for most players, especially if they don't have a plan going into the end game. So now that you've gotten stuck, the next part of the process is actually going to be quite a bit of a loop, and this is something that you're going to do for every challenge tier going up until you have maxed out gear. So this is going to be the last part of the process, and it's going to be the most tedious part of the process, but don't worry, I promise it's rewarding because at the end, you're going to have maxed out gear. So I also am going to be providing a little diagram so you can see what the loop is going to look like. So you're going to go into an expedition, increase your challenge tier, check the vendors for gear upgrades, because like I said, those vendors gear are going to upgrade as soon as you increase your challenge tier. If there's no upgrades there, or you simply just want to increase your own gear, then you craft on your gear and increase it there, and go back into the challenge tier again and repeat the process doing another high level expedition. I know that saying it out loud seems really simple and easy, but a lot of times you can get stuck. So if you find yourself going into the next level of expedition and you simply can't complete it in time, no matter how hard you try, one, make sure you're doing proper pushing maps, and by that I mean there are certain maps in the game that are a lot easier to progress on, and I actually have a full video on that as well. But let's say that you are actually utilizing that method, going to these maps that are supposed to be easier and still getting shut down. That is totally fine, and also part of the process. If that does happen to you as well, then you're going to want to continue to run maps that you can do on a challenge tier that you can do over and over again until you can build up whatever money or resources you need to get better gear, or just get better at playing the build that you're using. Once you have gotten the better gear or just gotten better at playing the game overall, then you can go back to that loop we were talking about before and trying it again. This can be quite a long task, going all the way from CT9 to CT15. I know for me it took a couple days, but I didn't have any guidance. I wasn't building towards a build that I knew was good or endgame or anything like that. So hopefully you'll have a lot better success than I did. So that's going to be about it for this video. I really hope this helps someone out there progress all the way through the game, or get to the point that they're simply most satisfied with. If you went about this process a different way that you think might be a little more fun, optimal, whatever, let me know down in the comments below, because of course, as always, this is just my experience and advice, so it'd be great to hear how other people went about this process. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all very soon.